CEO. And with me right now is Pearl Collins, the new CEO of Contently, as of 28 days ago, correct?
Absolutely.
So this is your first content marketing.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
What's been your...
It's definitely been just a constant buzz on the floor. Marketers, customers, technologies. It's just a great grouping together.
A mess in between, sure.
Yeah.
So now you have been in the role for just about a month, and assuming you want to make it to month 2, what...
Definitely want to be able to grow the business to the next level. Around our, we have a great custom. We have amazing freelancers, 160,000 freelancers. We obviously are SUS and help our brands with, and again, definitely connecting that along with strategy to kind of seam it together. And again, focusing on the customer, connecting the brand to the customer, I think is the number one.
So those are the goals and those are the things you want to achieve. Tech platforms and content marketers face. What's going to get in your way?
I think maybe part of the challenge is that content is still the queen, if I may, it's not the king. So it still remains that, and I think we want to be able to surface that back in the market.
Why do you think that is, though?
More on the marketing, advertising, and publishing side, I think maybe there was definitely some hardships in the last few years and got lost in that, and I don't think it's part of that conversation.
Right, okay, so does that mean we're sort of at a transition stage for content marketing of marketing as a discipline?
Absolutely, that goes in the next chapter and phase and evolution where the content again still can go.
Because one of the challenges I know content marketers have at the moment isn't just organizing all the content they have. Already an avalanche of content being published every day. So the challenge is, how do I keep that good? How do I maintain an up level as well? Where do you see content marketing going?
Definitely great question. So I think overall, number one, the core goes back to, again, quality of content. It goes back to the core of freelancers. And I think that's a core that we do need to get back to and appreciate. And so with that said, I do think part of the market is going a little bit more around services, right? So the secret sauce is a must table stands where we can support the brand, again, to just about the volume, but also the content play, the content planning. What are you putting out there and how? And what that will resonate, again, the customers well in engagement and for the brands in just overall performance.
So particularly within a brand, to be almost bolted on, it's an added extra, and it's often sometimes the first thing to get cut as a result.
It's either added
more integrated into a business to the point whereby they will need something like Contently.
So I think it is definitely part of the overall strategic planning, business strategy, not just a content strategy, because that is connect with the customer, right? Right,
okay. So what within the businesses though, and as everyone here, this place is full, then they've got to go back to their bosses on Monday or to their offices on Monday and try and convince them that platform and so on. What are some of the arguments that they can take back with them? How do they pitch to take content marketing to the next level when their bosses are like saying, do we need it?
Technology is definitely cohesive message, cohesive branding is definitely key. It is also key for efficiency and collaboration, right? There's definitely not only internally in the organization, but even externally in the market. We constantly collaborate outside of that as well. So having a technology that is the single source of truth, the collaboration platform is critical. So I think that's one huge piece. I think a lot of the market is also a lot of times take a more preemptive approach of them trying to come up with good content and having their own writers. But I think it's critical to take advantage of all the freelancers and content creators that are out there, because you can have a much higher quality, deeper experience and more better results at the end.
We've talked about good content, quality content and so on, which no one would argue with. That's got to be the goal. It's just, I think people define what that means differently depending on what their own position is. How would you define quality content or good content, and how can Contently help people to achieve that?
So what we apply is definitely, number one, it is an analytics, data, factual, right, a KPI-driven methodology, right? You definitely want to be able to have the qualitative of the content, but also the quantitative. So I think pairing that, which is what we apply in analytics and insights, is definitely critical. And then obviously, definitely the understanding those KPIs and engagements, again, how we engage the customer for the brand and with the brand is definitely also part of that customer journey, right? So it's not enough that you have a content and that there maybe, raises brand awareness, but then how do we influence and have that conversation and dialogue with the customer further down the funnel as well?
So really, it's not about the technology, it's not about the data, it's not about the creators, it's not about strategy, it's all of those things. How, in what you've seen so far and in your experiences so far, are businesses still struggling to hit all four of those things, or where are they falling down?
Because I think most of the businesses that are succeeding and growing are definitely the ones who are using a tech-enabled service approach.
Right.
And I think the service that's surrounding us, again, cybersecurity, cloud companies, social media, they're all not only applying the technology and that's the medium to get to something, but again, they're using services to round out and partner with the brands.
Okay, so the landscape is changing. Even this morning, people were talking about social media, which has been one of the major distribution tools for content for so long that we've relied upon, is becoming less viable for various reasons. And so do we need to start moving away or finding different alternatives? So how does that change what you do? How does Contently help with distribution?
So we absolutely are able to, again, partner in distribution as well. The distribution voice can become in many shapes or forms. It can be around, SEO. It can be social media. It can be, vlogs. Like there's so many other channels to go through and mediums to go through. Social, I think, is a key anchor, but it's only one of many.
So one of the other challenges is getting the content teams within brands and so on to work with. Because it's never usually one platform. It's never just Contently. It's like this, then we've got this, and then there's a CRM, and then there's, we're using Hootsuite for the social media, and then someone else has got WordPress going over there. And so you end up with this pile of different technologies and different systems. And how can they solve that?
So Contently is actually a complete solution because all the elements you mentioned, all the features and all the workflow elements are actually in Contently already. So you in fact could have a unified platform, again a single source of truth as well. But obviously we are more than happy to, and we definitely have partnered with best of breeds. So having that integration is definitely, right, some are lighter, some are heavier, absolutely. And again, and then to your point, even though it's fragmented, it is still, right, the top 100 best are the ones that everybody is using.
Okay, we're about to wrap up in just a few seconds. What would be your one takeaway then that you say this is what content marketers should be thinking about right now?
A tech-enabled service solution.
What, sorry?
A tech-enabled service solution.
Tech-enabled service solution. Okay. In that case, thank you very much for your time, Pearl. Good luck in the new role. I'm sure Contently will be hearing a lot more about, and enjoy the rest of content marketing world.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for your time as well.
Thank you.
welcome back. Thanks for joining us on Content Marketing World Chatter. I'm Tim Washer. We have Nicole Jolly here,
Hello.
who just flew in from Surrey, England, to join us. Actually, that's not true. Her husband's from England.
That was a really good guess, though.
That was a guess.
His parents live in Surrey.
Is that right?
How did that happen?
And we have them
he
live
did not
on the
know.
phone. We're going to go to Channel 2, and then the Queen of England will be dialing in as well. So it's kind of an international flavor because we got an international food show.
Yes, absolutely. We do, actually. We took it international last year. We went to Italy and did a story about Amalfi lemons, which is,
Wait, what type of lemons?
Amalfi lemons. So you know the Amalfi Coast?
Yes.
Yeah? So there are these special lemons that only grow in that region, right?
Okay.
And it was a very special story. The farmers there are sort of, it's an old profession, they're sort of dying out, and a lot of these lemon farms are being abandoned, and those trees, because they're so ancient, are holding up the coast. The Amalfi Coast is being held up by lemon trees. So it's a bit of a problem.
So wait, what's the challenge? What do you have to be careful of to farm to get these lemons?
Well, they just, the profession, all the old timers who do it, because it's really hard work, right? Farming is really hard work. On our channel, True Food TV, we talk about the origins of our food, right? So we dig in deep to what does it take to cultivate this particular crop. We find the story, right? And in the case of Amalfi lemons, these old farmers, their kids don't want to carry on this work. So the farms become abandoned and those trees start to die and the soil loosens and there has literally been mudslides as a result.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, is there work in process to fortify that at all?
Yes, there is, and there has been a bit of a renaissance there. Some younger generations are taking the mantle and continuing those farms and finding ways to diversify and bring in tourism and things like that.
Okay.
But
okay.
yeah.
So how do you go about choosing your stories?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We're very methodical. Pre-production is really important to us. And in fact, I was here today talking about video storytelling, and a lot of what I focused on was pre-production research. The success of video is all about pre-production. And so we have a crop calendar, so we know what's being harvested when around the world, and we zero in on the crops that we want to feature. And then we actually partner with brands to make those stories happen,
okay.
Right? So with chickpeas, we partnered with Sabra because chickpeas are in hummus, and tomatoes, we partnered with Prego. We're going to Spain next month to do olive oil. And we partnered with the Spanish Olive Oil Association over there. So this is, so it's all sort of an organic process.
Okay, and instead of olive oil, have you done anything on like that spray pan, anything like that?
No. What would you like to know? Because I'm always interested in what my audience wants to know.
I want to know how you take the elements in olive oil that make a pan non-stick.
Yes.
Right, and then force that into a spray.
I really doubt that there's actual olive oil in that spray. If there is, it is
just a little bit.
Yeah.
Then what are they using? Teflon? What's it?
Probably.
Okay.
I don't use that stuff.
That's an investigative story. I think
that
we need to
is.
tackle.
I'm into it.
Now listen, your roots at New York Times.
Oh yes.
Tell me about that transition.
I was a stringer at the New York Times, and I've written for a lot of other publications. So yes, I started my career as a journalist, and then around 2008, 2009, print kind of went into trouble, right? So I, with my husband, who is another journalist, we saw an opportunity to take our storytelling skills into video. And he comes from a travel writing background, so we started doing videos for hotels and tourism boards and things like that. And that started our journey into branded content. And the food thing was because I was writing a lot about food. I was always interested in food, but I was writing about restaurants and chefs and recipes and things like that. And I realized that I didn't know a heck of a lot about where my food came from. And then I realized that a lot of other people were like me And so we took the skills that we were using for other people and we created that in-house channel called True Food TV on YouTube.
Okay, so and I imagine this, you know, the recent years with the whole eat local,
Yes.
and people being a lot more committed about eating
Absolutely.
clean.
Yeah.
I assume that's helping to really grow your audience.
Absolutely.
You have a lot more people interested
Yes.
in these stories.
People are really interested in finding out where their food comes from. And you know, when we partner with brands, they're really interested in telling those stories now.
Okay.
To show
Right.
people, right? To be transparent
Sure.
about where their food comes from. So it's a really interesting moment because the brands are finally, they get it, right? They want to open up, they want to pull the curtain back, and
Yep.
we're ready to do it in a very authentic way, right?
Right.
So like my audience, when they're watching a tomato episode, they're not there feeling like they're being sold, you know, Prego tomato sauce. This is actually the real story
Yeah.
about how the farmers grow those tomatoes.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do brands connect with you? How
Yeah.
do they reach out and find you and say, hey, look, we want to tell the story?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the success of the channel. The channel has about 300,000 subscribers. We have 1.5 million monthly views. And
Really?
so, yeah, they're taking notice. Yeah. So,
And everything's on YouTube.
yes, those videos are on YouTube, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And what True Food? What's the YouTube
It's
channel?
True Food TV.
Okay, on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah,
Okay,
on
very
YouTube,
good.
yeah.
Now, what excites you about? Well, you talked about picking different crops.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it that excites you that when you hear something about a crop, you're like,
Yeah.
gosh, I'm doing a story on that.
Well, you know, I'm always looking for wow factors and things that people don't know about their food, and particularly that will help guide them as consumers, right? So, I mean, you think of a vegetable like cauliflower being like one of the most sort of basic, boring, you know, vegetables in the world. But we uncovered in the research stage, which is part of that pre-production process, an incredible thing where cauliflower isn't actually white. If you let cauliflower grow as it wants to grow, it will be sort of yellowy, kind of like vaguely orangey yellow. And that's because the sun is hitting it, and it actually is becoming more nutritious from increase in phytonutrients. But we as consumers think cauliflower should be white. And because we won't buy anything that doesn't look white, right? The farmers know we have to do something to keep our cauliflower white. So they go through this labor-intensive, absurd process. They send people, manpower out in the field. They have arms full of rubber bands, and each head of cauliflower gets their leaves tied over and rubber band.
You're kidding me.
This crazy process for nothing more than to keep it white. For us, the consumers who don't know anything, don't know better, right? So I enjoy finding stories like that and hoping to educate with my audience to make
Right.
them better consumers.
And that's going to change. So hopefully, more people
Yeah.
will say, "Wait a minute, I don't want white cauliflower.
That's right.
I want the real deal."
It's like
and then
what-
farmers can start. They can stop the rubber band process.
It does not taste any different, right? Yeah.
How do they get the cauliflower on a pizza? That's my question.
It does not belong in pizza. I'm
but
sorry.
they do. They're putting it now in the cauliflower.
In the crust, right?
Yes.
Yeah, people, I think, you know, we go through dietary trends and there's a lot of sort of anti-carb movement. So, you know, the cauliflower marketers, yes, good for them. They have kind of gone in there and figured out what can we do with cauliflower to get it out to the masses. And they're coming up with all these creative ways. But I'm sorry, I want my pizza to be dough.
You want the real deal? Yeah, I can hear some. I can hear some underlying anger there.
I'm a New
in this-
Yorker.
in this anti-carb movement.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite pizza spot in New York?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really hard. Ruby Rosa is very good
Okay.
downtown.
All right.
Yeah.
What about Ray's? No.
You know, I'm not from experience, so maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Hey, what's coming up this fall? What's an episode that we can be excited
So
about?
we just put out an heirloom tomato episode just a few days ago. We've got figs coming up, and olive oil, and then turmeric.
Awesome.
It's really neat. Yeah.
We got a big season ahead. it
Yeah,
sounds like.
we do.
All right.
We do.
Nicole, thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you,
We really
Tim.
appreciate it.
Thanks. It's been fun.